As usual, we have a lot to talk about. And look, you guys know I got my coffee. I'm ready to go. That strong iced white chocolate Americano. It's what helps get me through these reports and doing my research. And look, as much as I love the coffee, and you guys know that I do, I get wired up, I get fired up. But, it's also all of your prayers as well that really help me in my preparation. You guys are great because honestly, this stuff is heavy. It is quite a challenge at times to go through and have to research all of these subjects that I do. So I thank you all again, your prayers, and yeah, of course, the coffee, it helps as well. You guys know it does. I mean, what are you waiting for? Go get yours right now, whether it's iced hot, something in the middle, whatever it may be. Someone the other day told me they had some coffee ice cream. Hey, that counts too. If it's coffee related, get it and let's go, because we got to talk about Robert Morris. We got to talk about Gateway Church, new court filings. This is interesting. And I'm wondering, is this going to affect Robert Morris and the upcoming trial? I mean, we know he was indicted in March. We're going to talk about that. But new court filings that were put out on Friday, May 30th, have quite a bit of information. What this is, it's turning into a blame game between Robert Morris and Gateway Church. Who knew what, when, where, how, and, all of these things. And of course, it's also in the middle of Robert Morris wanting millions of dollars for his retirement. There's lawsuits. I mean, they're all over the place when it comes to Gateway. Then, of course, there's the former Gateway members who were suing Robert Morris and Gateway Church for the whole money back guarantee for the tithes. That's not a part of these specific filings, but that's ongoing as well. So what is going on with the latest? We're going to talk about it because, yes, ladies and gentlemen, in the new court filings, Robert Morris admits knowing that Cindy was only 12 years old. Cindy Clemishire was only 12 years old when he began mistreating her all the way back on Christmas of 1982. This is what we've been waiting for. Remember, for so long, what was the story that Robert Morris told? He was in an inappropriate relationship with a young lady. He never said to anybody that she was only 12, but in these court filings now, did you know? Did you know, in fact, that Robert Morris was prepared to inform his entire congregation nearly 14 years ago that he knew Cindy was 12. You're saying to yourself, what? I'm going to take another sip of my coffee? What are you talking about now by sight? We're going to get into it. But before we do, got to welcome all of you to Not By Sight News. Yes, a blind Christian guy here reporting to you, reminding you as always that we walk by faith, not by sight. And of course, for someone like me, that's kind of my only option. If you guys could, I need you to do me a huge favor. Please hit that like button for me. We have a likes goal on these videos, of course, trying to get at least 500 likes on each video that we do. We almost had it on the pair of videos that I put out yesterday. We hit the goal on one video. We did not quite make it on the second one, but who knows? We may still get it yet. I mean, we're trying here as best we can to get at least 500 on every video that we do. I'm not going to stop that goal because I believe at some point it's just going to be so easy. We're going to hit it every single time. So look, you guys can help me. Again, it just takes a quick second to smash that like button. Also, please share the video around. That too helps us get more traction, gets it out more in the algorithm in the recommended section to a wider audience so that we can further expose the church corruption, call out those wolves in the pulpit, and protect the vulnerable. If you guys can do me one more additional favor, just double check your notifications and make sure you have them put into the all position so that you're not missing a single video that I am putting out. Especially if you are a newer subscriber, when you first sub to a channel, they default those notifications over to the personalized option. So you have to go in there, manually change that over to all, and then you should be good to go. Thank you guys for that, and I hope you're all having a blessed day. So as I was doing my research, there was quite a bit that I found out. And It looks as though the reason for Robert Morris and his attorneys filing this claim that they did is supposedly, in their minds now, they're thinking that this is going to help Morris get the money that he thinks that he is owed here from Gateway. Now, let me bring you up to speed on this. For those that do not know, Robert Morris is claiming that he was promised all of this money when he left Gateway. He has accused the Gateway elders of forcing him out. Okay? Forcing him out. And this is interesting because when I get into it here in a little bit, if, Robert Morris now confessing that he knew Cindy was only 12 when he was doing what she did, because you have to understand, this has not been made, he's never come out and said this in any sort of a statement, whether it's, at the pulpit, although it was supposed to be, and we'll get to it, or any sort of, just a written statement, whatever. It's never been done. It was just always for so long? It was a young lady and it was wrong. He made it seem like he was having an affair, okay? That it was some sort of a mutual thing. It wasn't. She was 12 on Christmas night in the pink pajamas. We know this. We've been talking about it now for a year. Can you believe that? It's been a year almost since Cindy came out with her story. To the Wartburg Watch. Shout out to the Wartburg Watch, by the way, for the great work that they do over there in D. Parsons. So, the statement had never been made, okay, at any single point admitting that Cindy was 12. As far as this money issue goes, Morris again talks about how he was forced out, that the Gateway elders told him that if you do not resign, we'll fire you, okay? Now, Morris is claiming that Gateway had 60 days after he resigned to pay him $1 million up front. $1 million up front, but that wasn't it. But that also, every year until he turned 70, Gateway would dish out $800,000 a year to Robert Morris. Now, he's 63 now, so he'd be getting $800,000 for 7 years. And then after that, he turned 70, $600,000 a year for the rest of his life. And if something happened to him, if he passed away, well, then that money would go over to his wife, Debbie Morris, who, of course, we know Debbie was the one who said she forgave Cindy for all those things that she supposedly did to her husband, which we know she didn't. It was Morris. Just disgusting. It was her husband. So Morris claims that, unless there was cause, unless there was fraud or something or something else like that. And what he's trying to point out here was that, there were no criminal charges back then, so you guys still owe me all this money. And Gateway's saying, we ain't giving you a dime. But Morris is saying that this was a verbal agreement back in 2014 that Morris and the then Gateway elders had apparently sat down and they had this all figured out and made a deal. Because Morris is suing them now for not giving him this money, and Gateway's, saying, there was no such deal, there was no such agreement, and you're talking about something verbal. Well, we can't be, held accountable for that. There's no documents, there's nothing, and a lot of those elders that were there in 2014 are no longer there now. And Gateway also brought up the fact again that with these criminal charges against Morris, why would they pay him all of this money? They go, we're not doing it. We're not giving him a dime. The only thing that they did say was that if Morris had come out publicly and admitted that Cindy was only 12, well, then maybe they could work out something. Now, is Robert Morris's statement here part of the reason now that he's trying to say, okay, I'll come out? But what he's doing is he's attempting to try and take down every single Gateway elder that he's claiming also knew Cindy was 12. So this is interesting now because it's a game of, sort of one-upsmanship. I'll blame you, you blame this guy. It's just such an ugly situation. Morris thinks that this is somehow going to benefit him. So in this court filing, he's admitting now, and we're going to get more in depth in it here in a second. I'm just trying to set the stage for you. He admits to knowing that Cindy was 12 when all of this happened, but yet, when he was indicted, he pled not guilty. So I don't know if this filing is going to come into play. I know this is between Morris and Gateway, and he's going to trial. Preliminary hearing is scheduled for September 4th of this year. But I just don't know how this guy I get he's got to plead not guilty, I guess, but how he gets off pleading not guilty, and he's admitting here in the court filing that, yeah, I knew Cindy was 12. And I was a traveling evangelist. And yeah, so let's just get into it right now. Because documents, emails, messages were all filed here on Friday, May 30th from Robert Morris and his attorneys. Now get this. I want to, let's go back about 20 years. Can we take a little trip back in the time machine, right? Somebody called Doc Brown and get the DeLorean, fired up from Back to the Future, because we have to go back to 2005. What was 2005? This, of course, is when Cindy Clemishire had made contact with then Gateway executive pastor and elder Tom Lane. And of course, Cindy was communicating with Tom Lane, letting him know, hey, I was only 12 when this guy did this to me. I've had to go through counseling, and I've had to go through therapy, and I've had to go through all these different things. He's basically, made and amassed millions in light of what he did to me. He founded, Gateway Church at that time, had only been around for about 5 years. And the communication would continue with Tom Lane, but Cindy ultimately told Tom, look, I want to speak to Robert. And then, of course, there was finally some communication between Cindy Clemishire and Robert Morris, and Robert had, told her, okay, just give me a number. But what do you want? What are you looking for? Now, Cindy jokingly said $2 million just to see what he would say. And of course, Morris wasn't going to pay that. And he even said that, well, if you choose to go public with this, think about your father, Cindy, because your father didn't want this to be put out there. So if you choose to do that, this is something that could end up hurting you as well. And, he was trying to make it seem like Cindy could be legally held accountable as well. Extortion, all these things, right? So he tried to intimidate her even then. After all what he did to her for those 5 years between 1982 and 1987. So now we fast forward to, and the other thing too, he said, I remember, I got to put this in there. He said that, Cindy, me and Debbie just want what's best for you. You little sucker, to say something, we just want what's best for you. Right, you and Debbie, you want the best for Cindy. Sure, you weren't even willing to give this woman a dime. Huh. Man, these people are something else. So now we go to 2007. Now this is big. We know that in 2007, Cindy was being represented by now Oklahoma Attorney General Gettner Drummond. And I just think it's fascinating. It is fascinating to me to see where things are right now compared to where they were then 18 years ago until now. Gettner wasn't the, Oklahoma Attorney General. He was just doing private practice, represented Cindy. Lawsuit was filed against Morris. What was it that Cindy and Drummond were asking for? $50,000. $50,000 to help her with the cost of the reimbursement of all the therapy, all the years of therapy and the counseling and all this woman had to go through. The pain, the suffering. She's talked about it in interviews. She was going through torment while Morris was profiting. Week by week, more and more money was coming in for this guy. And he's got the nerve to be asking for all this money from Gateway. Some things never change. They never have enough. They can never have enough money. What was it that Robert Morris and his attorneys came back with? we'll give you $25,000, but we're going to make you sign an NDA so that you can never talk about this again. Not only that, but we know that Robert Morris's attorney at the time blamed Cindy for what happened. So that was just an extra slap for her to have to deal with, right? Now, we'll give you half of what you want. It is your fault, though, but we're also going to make you sign an NDA. So if you want the money, Cindy, if you want a cool 25, sign here and then keep your mouth shut for the rest of your life. You'll never be able to speak about this. So there apparently was more that happened in 2007 that we were not previously made aware of. This is all, again, been put out by Robert Morris's attorney in the court filing on Friday, May 30th. And this is where it comes into play that Morris is trying to let everybody know that all you Gateway elders knew that Cindy was only 12. He's trying to bring everybody down with him, is what he's trying to do. He's just trying to, I'm just gonna light the whole thing up and take the whole thing down. We can take you all down with me. So all these documents and emails, other messages were filed. And apparently it included a copy of a demand letter, okay? Of a demand letter. The lawsuit, remember, this is, again, when Cindy and had Gettner Drummond representing for $50,000. It included a demand letter, and in the suit, it stated, now this was sent to Tom Lane and all of the rest of the Gateway elders, okay? And in the demand letter, in the lawsuit, it made very well known that Cindy was only 12 years old when Robert Morris did what he did to her. So they all knew. They all knew. Okay? Not only that, but there was apparently an elder meeting that was held in August of 2007. Tom Lane was directing that meeting. And in it, according to the communication, according to the filings, Tom Lane basically said to the rest of the elders, you've been made aware of the steps that Robert has gone through over the last 20 years. And at this time, we're no longer going to address the matter. There's nothing more that we're going to do. We're just going to move on. We're just going to basically drop it. This is after he already got the email, and all the rest, the rest of the Gateway elders received the message as well. Copies of the demand letter and the lawsuit from Gettner Drummond, again, saying Cindy was only 12. And yet, Tom Lane and the rest of the elders, in that meeting, we're not going to do anything about this. We're just going to let it go. So they thought right there. Now, of course, we know that Cindy ultimately, didn't end up taking that deal. She would not sign that NDA, and we're very happy. We've been talking about this. Thank God she did not sign that. She wouldn't be able to come out with this story. And that's why right now, they're like this close. Like, it's passed. I believe it's gone to the governor's desk in Texas, signing that bill. It's also going to be called Trey's Law, of course, referencing Trey Carlock of the Connecticut camp lawsuit there. A horrible deal there. Trey ended himself because of the horrible mistreatment that he went through at the hands of one of the leaders in that camp. And so with that bill, once it gets signed, NDAs, and this is a great example of this, they will no longer, you're not going to be able to do this anymore as it relates to these cases of mistreatment. Churches aren't going to be able to just, here you go, sign the NDA if you want something. No, they're not going to be able to protect themselves and hide behind it anymore. So we're very close to getting that signed. So I wanted to briefly mention that because that was a piece of news that I came across the other day. So at this point, in 2007 now, they think that, cool, it's all behind us, right? Cindy didn't sign it. We tried. We did our best. She didn't want to take us up on our offer. Now we go to 2011. What happened in 2011? Because this isn't a year. This is not a year that was previously talked about as we've been covering this story. And there was, this all, by the way, too, is in the court filings. There was an anonymous email. Okay, they're saying anonymous. We don't know. We don't know if it was Cindy. We don't know who this was from. Cindy Clemishire did not respond to comment, by the way, when reached. And you guys can go to, the Dallas Morning News has an article out about this. So if you want to go read it in full, that's where you can go find it. But an anonymous email went out to Robert Morris and the rest of the Gateway elders. And apparently, Robert Morris, and they had, this statement was already written out. Robert Morris and the Gateway elders, they had a statement prepared. Robert Morris was going to read a statement on December 27th, 2011 from the pulpit, acknowledging he knew Cindy was only 12 when he started mistreating her. Nearly 14 years ago. Can you imagine? Can you imagine, had he read that statement, what it would have meant? Would he have stepped down then? Now, I'll get to why he didn't, but they included a full copy of the statement in the filing. And I'm going to paraphrase it for you, but again, if you want to read the full thing, you can go to the Dallas Morning News article. But basically, it said this, and this is, again, what he was going to read. Gateway elders knew about it. He was going to go up there 2 days after Christmas, and that's really interesting to me. I didn't previously think about that. But all of the mistreatment against Cindy, remember that happened on Christmas night of 1982. So this almost came on, again, on Christmas, but this would have been Christmas of 2011. So I don't know. I just think it's interesting with the timing. That was going to be the date, December 27th, that Morris was going to be reading the statement. And in it, Morris was going to say this. When I was in my early 20s and I was a traveling evangelist, I would often stay at the home of, the home of a family that, had me in when I was doing preaching. This is going back to the Shady Grove days, right? And he said there was they had a daughter who he said was 12 years old. Okay. He was going to read it out in the statement. Who was 12 and apparently was going to be turning 13 a couple of weeks later. That doesn't matter. She was still under 18. And he said, what happened was that she came into the bed with me. Now, the interesting part that was left out was that there was a conversation that was in the car with Morris and Cindy when Morris had informed Cindy to come and visit him that night. That part was conveniently left out of the statement. But again, the statement was written. He was going to read this. And he said that Cindy got into the bed with him, and he mentions again, these were the words that he used when he had been talking about this previously, but when it was just a young lady. No mention of the age of her being 12, but he said, and there was smooching and there was petting that was going on. Petting? What is petting? Like it's a dog. And he also said that despite the fact that I knew she was 12, she looked a lot older. She didn't look 12. As if somehow that justifies. But she didn't look 12, though. Just looked a lot older. And as the statement continued, he would say that it is 100% my fault. It is inexcusable what I did. And said that he was deeply sorry. Now, again, this was written in 2011. But just prior to him reading that statement, which again who knows what it would have done. And in the filing, this is mentioned by Morris's attorney, that at the time, Gateway counsel at the time advised Morris to not read the statement, despite the anonymous email that came in, which, by the way, also, I guess the Dallas Morning News even had a copy of that. The email went out to different media outlets, including them. But they mentioned privacy laws. They mentioned how this would cause embarrassment to Cindy, and that it would go against the wishes of Cindy's family as far as them wanting to keep this private. Now, I find it interesting that it talks here about the embarrassment that it would have bring Cindy. What about the embarrassment that it would have brought Robert Morris? Because it would have probably, in all reality, ended him right there as far as being a preacher. How many people? But, there still probably would have been some. But that congregation back in 2011. Now, I am curious because for you guys watching right now, if any of you attended Gateway around that time, I would have loved to know what your response would have been to this. If he would have actually took the pulpit and read this back on December 27, 2011, what would you have said? What would your response have been? Hearing this man talk about this girl being 12 and him doing what he did. Because the statement didn't go on to say that it went on for another 5 years. I mean, he was just talking. This was just the initial time it happened. The very first time that it happened. Would you have up and left the church then? Would you have been calling for his resignation in 2011? So again, they bring up privacy and it would embarrass Cindy. It would embarrass him. It would have ruined him. And Cindy's family not wanting this to be put out there. And remember, that was, again, something that Robert Morris had said to Cindy Clemishire just a few years earlier in 2007 in that email exchange when he said, well, you might want to ask your father about this because your father, wouldn't want you to do. Trying to act as somehow as if Morris was, friends with her dad. And Cindy even said in her story that her dad basically wanted to, tear Morris apart when he first heard about what happened. And don't forget, her parents were in the courtroom when he was arraigned back at the beginning of May. So a lot of people have asked me that, are her parents still around? They are. They are here. I think they're in their 80s. I think they're doing pretty well. So I am sure that they, at that time in 2011, would definitely have wanted Robert Morris to read that statement. They have wanted justice for their daughter for so long. And I know how happy they were. They spoke, they gave an interview when Morris was indicted. I mean, they couldn't have been more happy that finally it looked like justice was beginning to finally play out after more than 40 years. I mean, it's just incredible. It's absolutely incredible. So all of that was included here in the motion. And again, they talk about why, they did not read it. Advised against doing it by their counsel for all those reasons that I had just mentioned. Now, Gateway responded the very same day on Friday, May 30th, and said that as far as with Morris here trying to say that, trying to bring us down, saying we had knowledge, they said, look, we had the independent investigation come in last year. They hired Haynes and Boone to look into the allegations, and they said in November, we got the results. November of 2024, you had Gateway elder Trey Wilbanks. He came out and he informed everybody that the investigation showed that multiple elders and multiple staff had prior knowledge of knowing that Cindy was only 12 when this was going, and they were all fired. They were all removed from their positions. Remember, it was all but 3 Gateway elders that were bounced. Trey Wilbanks was one of them that stayed, and then 2 others. That's it. They were the only 3 that apparently had no knowledge because they weren't there at the time. They had come on board later. I believe Wilbanks came on board around 2014. And, again, you go back 2011. That was a few years before Wilbanks got there. And so all these, the emails and the communications and all of that. So they're saying here basically, look, we already got rid of those people, just like we got rid of Morris. So they're, sticking to their, they're sticking to their side on this, and they're not going to, again, they don't want to give this guy anything at all. And I asked this question again. Does this now hurt Morris with his upcoming hearing in September? Now in the statement, acknowledging, putting in the statement that he was going to read back in 2011 of knowing Cindy was 12, saying that I thought, though, she was turning 13 in a couple of weeks, but she looked a lot older than 12. Still was wrong, still inexcusable, totally my fault. Now, here's another question I have. If he was going to be reading this statement back in 2011, right? He was ready to do it. I don't know who helped him to craft it, if it was him, just him and the Gateway Elders, or who it was. We still don't know, again, who the anonymous email was. Was it Cindy again? Maybe. But had he read that, should he not have resigned then in 2011 and not 2024 when Cindy had to go public with her story? Remember, she couldn't have done that if she signed that NDA back in 2007. Morris knew about all this. He could have done the right thing then in 2011. To be honest, he should have done it a lot earlier than that. But the fact that this email got sent out, they had the statement written, he was going to read it. Was he just going to read the statement? Because I really would like to know this. Was he just going to read the statement, apologize, get a standing ovation from everybody at Gateway, and just go right on with, the regular business of the church? Wouldn't have surprised me, to be honest. But if he was going to read it, he should have immediately resigned after. Something tells me, though, that he wouldn't have done that, because there's nothing that I saw that stated that him reading this statement on December 27, 2011, had it happened, was he also going to be resigning? I didn't see that anywhere. It would have been really interesting to see what would have happened. But again, this is all information we didn't know until now. And the whole reason that Morris is even including it with his attorney, and they submitted all these documents in the court filing, is to somehow try and take the Gateway Elders down. But again, like Trey Wilbank said, we knew, according to that Haynes and Boone investigation, we knew that they had already gotten rid of the elders that had, the prior knowledge. And again, this would go back to that board meeting back in August of 2007 that Tom Lane was overseeing. Right, we're just going to move on, right? Nothing more to see here. So, yeah, I mean, really, all parties here that knew are absolutely wrong, should not be serving in ministry ever again. All of that. But Morris is trying to, again, do this so he can get his money. What's the money going to matter if he's serving time in prison? That's the other part of this. Because these charges are no joke. Remember, there's 5 of them, and he could face life in prison if he's convicted. Now, of course, his high-powered attorney is going to do everything in his power to make sure that doesn't happen. But you never know. Just think, we never thought that the indictment would even come, and it did. So, who's to say that a conviction may not happen either? And, of course, now Gateway has their new senior pastor. I talked about that previously. Daniel Floyd has come in from another Virginia megachurch, and I did a whole video on that. You can go back on the channel and watch that if you want to get my thoughts on that. But, this is just going to continue here with these sides for a while. Very interesting. It's just very interesting to see all that is now being exposed. Will this hurt or help Robert Morris in the long run? I want to know what you guys think about it. In fact, all of you guys chime in down below in the comment section. We always encourage everybody to get involved in the discussion, as it does help the video to perform better with more engagement. Don't forget as well our likes goal. We are trying to get at least 500 likes on each video that we do. Can you guys help me get there? Remember, it just takes a quick second to smash that like button. Also, please share the video around. That too will help us get more traction on it, get it out more in the algorithm in the recommended section to a wider audience, so that we can further expose the church corruption, call out those wolves in the pulpit, and protect the vulnerable. If you really enjoy and appreciate the work of Not By Sight News and you would like to see this great work continue, would you consider making a generous donation to support and fund our operation here? As I always say, I'm not here to promote to you a false prosperity gospel. We just ask that if you appreciate the work being done, you find it important, you would think about giving to us. You'd also be helping us out in what has been a very tumultuous 9 months for myself and my wife with her various health issues, including suffering a stroke, clotting disorder, lupus, and even Bell's palsy. It's been a very rough go. I have certainly felt not just the stress, but the fear, the anxiety, and all that comes with what we've gone through. We're powering through as best we can, but I can tell you that in the aftermath of that, the medical bills for all this are certainly not cheap. So if you feel led by the Lord to help us out, maybe you just enjoy the work that we're doing here overall, and you would like to bless us because of that. Well, we have multiple ways you can contribute. One of those is by going over to our GoFundMe. We set up a GoFundMe to help out. The link to that is in the description of this video and all videos. You can also become a monthly partner with us for as little as just $5 a month by going over to patreon.com/notbysightnews. That link also in the description. And then finally, you can just hit the super thanks button on the YT video here. Although I will tell you that if you choose that option, YT does take 30% for themselves. So if you do want to make sure we get the majority of your generous gift, then GoFundMe or Patreon will be your best option. And we, again, appreciate all of your support. We cannot do this without you. What I want to do right now, something I do on all these videos, and that's end this video on hope. It's part of my ministry outreach. This is an altar call. I've been doing this on my videos since 2016. No matter what it is that I am discussing in the church, we always want to give people the opportunity to receive Christ as Savior. That being said, anybody watching now, if you are somebody who has not yet received Jesus as Lord and Savior and you would like to do so, I want to lead you in a prayer to do that right now. This is a prayer you could do in your own words, but I will give you the steps you need to bring it before the Lord today. First thing you want to do right off the top, acknowledge you are a sinner. That is something that we all are. The good news is that God gave his only son, Jesus Christ, to die on that cross for the sins of all the world, as he died and rose again for you and me. He paid the cost. What you have to do is repent of your sin. That means to turn from sin, not just to say you're sorry and jump back to your old ways, but to actually turn from sin, which are those lifestyles, patterns, habits, behaviors, things in your life that go against the word of God. If you humbly go before the Lord, though, and ask him to forgive you, he'll wipe your sin away. The Bible says he doesn't remember it any longer. And then you invite Jesus into your life to be your Lord and Savior. When you do that, you become born again, a child of God. You will have eternal life. Trust me when I tell you there is no greater decision that you will ever make than the one you do to give your life to Christ. And I pray you make that decision today. Again, more info down below. Thank you all again so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I'll be back with more. You guys take care. Please be safe out there. God bless each and every single one of you. And I'll talk with you soon.